The alien marketplace was alive with noise, colors, and strange smells. Metal stalls glowed under harsh lights, selling everything from spices that smoked like fire to cages of small creatures with glowing eyes. Voices of dozens of alien languages clashed in the air, turning the place into a storm of sound. But through all that noise came a voice that was almost too soft to hear. "Please, buy me. Take me away." It was not a shout, not a bargain. It was a trembling voice, like someone with no hope left, speaking to no one in particular. The human stopped walking. He was only here for parts for his ship, nothing else. The man from Earth wasn't a hero. He wasn't looking for trouble. Yet something in that voice made him pause. It carried pain and a faint spark of life, as if the speaker was holding on by a single thread. He turned and saw her. She was chained to a metal post like a beast for sale. A thin, pale girl with silver-gray skin that caught the market lights and made her look almost ghost-like. Her long hair was tangled and fell over her face. A metal collar circled her neck, blinking with a faint red light. But her eyes, when she looked up, stopped him cold. They were wide, strange, and beautiful. But behind them was fear, deep fear, the kind that comes from running too long, from losing too much. She was on her knees, the chains tight around her wrists, like she had been here for days, maybe longer. The human felt a weight in his chest. He had seen slaves before on backwater worlds, but this felt different. An alien merchant, fat and with 4 eyes that blinked separately, saw the human watching. He laughed, a dry sound like metal scraping on metal. "Careful, off-worlder," the merchant said. "That one's cursed. Every master she's had ends up dead. You want a servant? Buy another. Not her." The human ignored him for the moment. His eyes stayed on the girl. "Please," she said again, her voice shaking. "Take me with you. I'll work. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me here." The merchant snorted. "She begs well, I give her that. But she's bad luck. Death walks with her." The crowd nearby was watching now. A few aliens whispered to each other, their expressions amused. "Is that true?" the human asked finally, his voice calm. The merchant shrugged. "Some say she escaped from warlords in the outer belt. Some say she stole something cursed. Me? I just sell what comes to me. She came cheap. She goes cheap." The human studied her again. She didn't look dangerous. She looked broken. But the way the crowd stared, the way the merchant smirked, this was more than simple fear. There was a story here, one the girl wasn't telling. "How much?" the human asked. The merchant raised his brows. "You want to buy her? Ha, fine. 200 credits. And when she brings you death, don't come crying back." The crowd laughed. The human pulled the credits from his belt and tossed them down without another word. The laughter stopped. The merchant looked surprised, then grinned with sharp teeth. He bent down, unlocked the chains, and pressed a button on the collar. Clicked, then fell to the ground. The girl didn't move. She stared at the human like she couldn't believe what just happened. "You're free," he said simply. "Come on." Slowly, she stood. Her legs shook. The chains had left marks on her skin. She walked toward him like someone afraid the ground would break beneath her feet. As they left, whispers followed. "Dead man walking. Earthmen are fools. She'll bring war to his ship." The human ignored them, but their words crawled into his mind and stayed there. At his ship, she stopped at the open ramp. The lights inside glowed warm against the cold night air. "You don't know my name," she said softly. "You can tell me," he replied. "Lyra," she whispered. He nodded. "All right, Lyra, get in." But she didn't move. "I'll sleep outside," she said, voice trembling. "When I stay too close, bad things happen. People die." The human frowned. "Who's coming for you?" She lowered her head, silent. Above them, beyond the sky, a shadow passed among the stars. Watching, waiting. And the man from Earth realized buying her was only the beginning of something far bigger than he understood. The ship's metal door closed behind them with a soft hiss. Inside, the lights glowed faintly, showing the narrow hallways, the empty cargo bay, and the small living space of the man from Earth. Lyra stood near the door, frozen, like she didn't belong there. The man placed his bag of ship parts on the table and finally turned to look at her properly. She was thinner than he thought. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale from exhaustion. But her eyes kept watching the door like someone expecting enemies at any moment. "Sit," the man said, pointing at the bench near the table. She didn't move. "I said sit. You look like you'll fall any second." Slowly, she obeyed, lowering herself onto the bench, her fingers gripping the edge tightly. She sat like someone ready to run at the first sound of danger. The man opened a storage box, pulled out a packet of food, and set it in front of her. "Eat." She stared at it for a long moment, then at him. "It's not poisoned," he said. She took one careful bite, then another, like she hadn't eaten real food in days. For a while, there was only the sound of her chewing softly. The man leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So, who's coming after you?" She froze mid-bite. "I'm not stupid," he said. "The way the crowd looked at you, the way the merchant smirked when I bought you. There's more to this than bad luck." Lyra swallowed hard. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "They'll come. They always do." "Who?" She shook her head. "Warlords. Hunters. People who don't forgive." The man frowned. He was just a trader. He carried cargo, fixed machines, made deals. He didn't fight wars. He didn't cross powerful alien warlords. "You ran from them?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I escaped. They want me back." "Why?" For the first time, her eyes met his fully. "Because I wasn't supposed to live." The man felt a chill. He had seen fear before, but this was different. This was someone carrying a secret heavy enough to crush her. He thought about turning the ship around, leaving her at the next station, letting someone else deal with her problems. But when he looked at her thin hands shaking as she held the food, when he saw the collar marks on her neck, the thought left him. She had begged him to buy her, and he had said yes. Now she was his responsibility whether he liked it or not. When the ship engines rumbled to life, Lyra flinched at the sound. "Relax," the man said. "We're just leaving this rock. You want to stay here and wait for them?" She didn't answer. The ship lifted off, leaving the noisy market world behind. Through the small window, the ground shrank into darkness as the stars spread out ahead. The man checked the controls. No ships following. At least not yet. But his gut told him trouble wouldn't wait long. Later, when the ship was on autopilot, he found her sitting on the floor near the cargo bay instead of the bed he had shown her. "You can sleep inside," he said. She shook her head. "I told you, bad things happen to people near me." He sighed. "What do you think will happen? That I'll fall over dead in my sleep?" Her silence was answer enough. The man crouched down so he could see her eyes. "Listen, I don't scare easy. You're on my ship now. Whoever's after you will have to get through me first." She stared at him like no one had ever said that to her before. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "True," he said. "So tell me your story. Who are you, really?" For a long moment, she said nothing. The ship hummed softly around them. Then she spoke in a voice so low he almost didn't hear it. "My name is Lyra Taziel," she said. "Daughter of the High House of Velker." The man blinked. Velker. Even he had heard that name. A ruling house from the outer systems. Rich, powerful, dangerous. "You're a princess?" he asked slowly. She looked down at her hands. "Not anymore. Not since they burned my home and sold me to slavers." The man felt the weight of her words. A fallen princess. Hunted by warlords. Sold like an animal. And now sitting on his ship. Before he could speak again, the ship's alarm beeped softly. He looked at the radar screen. 3 ships. Closing in fast. He didn't need to ask who they were. Lyra had already gone pale. "They found me," she whispered. The man from Earth tightened his jaw. He had made his decision the moment he bought her. Now he would have to live or die with it. The alarm kept beeping, steady and cold. 3 red dots moved closer on the radar screen, fast and without hesitation. The man from Earth watched the screen, jaw tight. His ship was small, meant for trading, not for fighting. If those ships attacked, he didn't stand much chance. Beside him, Lyra stood frozen. Her hands were clenched at her sides, her eyes locked on the blinking red lights. "They found me," she whispered again, voice shaking. "Yeah," the man said quietly. "I guessed that." He didn't ask how. He didn't ask why. He already knew her presence had brought this trouble. What he didn't know was why they wanted her so badly, and why she looked so terrified now, like she was about to break apart. "Tell me the truth," he said sharply. "Before they get here, who are you to them? Why won't they stop chasing you?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the radar as the ships crept closer. "Lyra," he said firmly, "if I'm about to die for you, I at least deserve to know why." Finally, she turned toward him. Her face was pale, her voice so soft it was almost lost under the ship's hum. "They will never stop," she said, "because I carry something they fear, something they thought was destroyed when they burned my home." He stared at her. "What?" She hesitated like someone standing at the edge of a cliff. Then she said it. "My bloodline." The man frowned. "Your bloodline?" She nodded. "I am not just a runaway slave. I was the last living heir of the High House of Velker. The warlords killed my family. My father, my brothers, everyone. They feared our power. They feared the secret my house carried. When they burned our city, they thought it ended. But I escaped. And as long as I live, their rule is not complete." The man felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. A fallen princess was one thing, but a fallen princess carrying a secret powerful enough to threaten warlords? That was another story entirely. "What secret?" he asked slowly. Her eyes darted to the radar, then back to him. "There are codes hidden in my bloodline, ancient weapons locked away for centuries. My father swore they would only be used if the galaxy faced total destruction. The warlords want those weapons. They want the codes in me." The man stared at her. Weapons? Codes? This was no longer about a scared girl in chains. This was about power big enough to shake star systems. "And if they catch you?" he asked. "They will break me," she whispered. "They will take the codes. Then no one will stop them." The beeping grew faster. The ships were almost in range. The man turned back to the controls. His ship wasn't built for fighting. He had one small cannon, barely enough to scare off pirates. "Can they track us through hyperspace?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "They have hunters. They will follow. They always follow." He swore under his breath. Running wouldn't work. Fighting wouldn't work. Then he felt her hand on his arm. "There is one way," she said softly. He looked at her. "One way. To stop them," she said. "For now." She hesitated, then added, "But you must trust me." The man almost laughed. Trust her? He had known her for less than a day, and already warships were chasing him through the stars. But the way she looked at him, eyes wide, voice trembling but steady, he knew she wasn't lying. "What do you need?" he asked. "Access to your controls," she said. "I can shut them down. I know their ships. I know their codes." He stared at her, uncertain. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "If they catch us, they will kill you. They will take me, and then the galaxy will burn." The man didn't like it, but he didn't have another choice. "Fine," he said. "Do it." Lyra moved quickly, her fingers dancing over the console like she had done this before. She entered a string of symbols he didn't recognize. Strange shapes filled the screen, glowing red, then gold. Outside, the enemy ships closed in. The man gripped the controls, ready to run, ready to fight, ready for anything. Then, all at once, the enemy ships stopped. Just stopped. Engines dead. Weapons offline. The man blinked. What did you do?" Lyra leaned back, breathing hard. "I told you. I know their ships. My father built the codes into them long ago, in case they turned on him. He never thought I would use them." The man stared at her, realization sinking in. She wasn't just a fugitive. She was the key to something much bigger. And now the warlords would come harder than ever before. The enemy ships floated dead in space, dark and silent, after Lyra's codes shut them down. The man from Earth gripped the controls tightly, eyes scanning the radar. He half expected the ships to wake again, to fire on them without warning. But they didn't move. "You really shut them down," he said slowly. Lyra nodded, her face pale. "It won't last long. Others will come. Stronger ships. Ships without the codes." The man didn't like the sound of that. He looked at her carefully. She was sitting in the co-pilot's seat, hands clasped together as if holding back fear. He asked the question burning in his mind. "Why didn't you tell me the truth earlier? That they're after you because of this?" Her eyes stayed on the dark ships outside. "Because everyone who knows dies." The words hung heavy in the small cabin. The man didn't respond. He had no time to, because just then, the radar began to beep again. Not 3 ships this time. 6. Bigger. Faster. Coming straight for them. Lyra's breath caught. She knew these ships. Sleek black warships, carrying the mark of the Iron Dominion, the warlords who burned her home. The man swore under his breath. They brought the Real killers this time. The ships didn't slow. "Get us out of here," Lyra said quickly. The man slammed the controls forward. The small trader ship jumped into hyperspace, stars stretching into white lines outside the windows. But Lyra shook her head. "It won't matter. They can track through hyperspace. They have hunters." The man glanced at her sharply. "Then where do we go?" "Somewhere they can't follow easily," she said. "The Dead Belt." He froze. The Dead Belt was a region of space full of wrecked ships, broken moons, and old war debris from battles centuries ago. It was dangerous, unstable. Many who entered never came back. "That place will kill us," he said flatly. "So will they," she whispered. Hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of the Dead Belt. The sight was breathtaking. Broken starships floated in silence, some larger than cities. Shattered moons spun slowly, their surfaces scarred by old weapon fire. Dust clouds glowed faintly under distant suns. It was like entering the graveyard of 1,000 wars. The man weaved the ship between massive hulls and drifting metal towers. Here, sensors barely worked. It was the perfect place to hide. But the enemy didn't stop coming. The hunters arrived minutes later, black ships slipping between the wrecks like predators in deep water. "They're splitting up," the man muttered, watching the radar. "They're hunting us one by one." Lyra stood behind him, gripping the seat. "They won't stop. Not until I'm dead or they have me." The first attack came without warning. A blast of red energy streaked past their ship, close enough to shake the hull. The man cursed and swung the controls, diving behind a broken warship the size of a mountain. Another shot slammed into the wreck beside them, tearing metal into fire. The hunters had found them, and they weren't holding back. The man returned fire with his small cannon, but it was like throwing pebbles at a storm. The enemy ships were faster, stronger, made for war. Another blast rocked the cabin. Warning lights flashed red across the controls. "We can't win this," he said through clenched teeth. Lyra's eyes blazed suddenly. "I can stop them, but you have to get me close enough." He looked at her in disbelief. "Close enough? Are you insane? They'll tear us apart." She didn't flinch. "Do you want to live? Then trust me." The man hesitated only a second before diving toward the nearest hunter ship. Energy blasts chased them through the graveyard of metal. As they weaved between the wrecks, Lyra's fingers flew over the console again. She entered more codes, faster this time, whispering something under her breath like an old prayer. The enemy ship in front of them suddenly jerked, its weapons falling silent. Then its engines died, leaving it drifting like a dead thing. She did the same to the second ship. Then the third. But the fourth didn't stop. "They changed their systems," Lyra gasped. "They're learning." The fourth ship fired again, shaking the trader's hull so hard the lights flickered. The man spun the controls wildly, dodging between a spinning asteroid and the broken wing of an ancient battleship. We can't take another hit like that, he shouted. Lyra's hands moved faster, entering longer, older codes. Her face was pale with sweat. The fourth ship came in close, weapons glowing red. And then it froze. Engines dead. Guns silent. Lyra leaned back, shaking. That was the last code I had. Next time, it won't work. The man stared at the drifting warships outside. They had survived. Barely. But the message was clear. The hunters would keep coming. And next time there would be no codes to save them. Lyra looked at him, her voice quiet but steady. They know who I am now, she said. And they will not stop. The man nodded slowly. He believed her. Because even now, in the darkness beyond the dead belt, he could feel it. The warlords were already preparing for the next attack. The ship drifted in the shadows of the dead belt. Outside, giant wrecks floated like sleeping beasts. Shattered moons turned slowly, pieces breaking away and disappearing into the darkness. Inside the small trader ship, the air was tense and heavy. The man from Earth checked the controls again. Systems were damaged. The engine core was running hot. Shields were weak. One more serious hit, and the ship wouldn't survive. Lyra sat near the window, staring at the drifting warships she had shut down with her codes. Her face was pale, her eyes empty, like someone carrying a weight too big for her small shoulders. They'll come again, she said softly. Bigger ships. Stronger. Codes won't stop them next time. The man glanced at her. Then we need something better than codes. She didn't answer. But he saw it. The way her hands trembled slightly. The way she avoided his eyes. Like she was hiding something. He leaned against the console, arms crossed. There's more, isn't there? Something you're not telling me. Lyra kept her eyes on the window. If I tell you, you won't believe me. Try me, he said. Silence filled the cabin for a long moment. Then Lyra spoke, her voice low but steady. My father didn't just leave codes to shut ships down, she said. He left something else. Something powerful. Something dangerous. The man frowned. Dangerous how? She turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes. Old weapons, she whispered. Built before the wars. Before the empires. Weapons that could burn whole fleets in seconds. The man stared at her, trying to read her face. You're saying you know where these weapons are? He asked. She nodded slowly. They're locked away, hidden on a dead world. Only my bloodline can open them. That's why the warlords want me alive. With those weapons, nothing could stop them. The man felt a cold chill run through him. He had seen enough war to know what power like that would mean. Entire planets could fall. Millions could die. You want to use them, he said carefully. Her eyes were unreadable. If we don't, they will. Before he could respond, the radar beeped again. More ships. But this time something was different. These were not hunters. These were warships. Massive, bristling with weapons, moving in tight formation. And they were headed straight for the dead belt. The man swore under his breath. They're bringing an army this time. Lyra stood slowly. She didn't look afraid. Not like before. Instead, there was something new in her eyes. A decision. We go to Velker, she said. The man blinked. Velker? Your homeworld? It was burned, wasn't it? She nodded. The weapons are buried under the old capital. In the Vault of Stars. My father locked them there before the warlords betrayed him. The man checked the radar again. The warships were getting closer. Even if the weapons are real, he said, how do you expect to fight an entire army with one small ship? Lyra's gaze was steady. We won't fight with this ship. She paused, then added, we'll wake something far bigger. They jumped into hyperspace moments before the enemy fleet reached the dead belt. As the stars stretched into white lines outside the window, the man leaned back in his seat, staring at the strange girl beside him. He had bought her for 200 credits. Now she was talking about weapons that could change the fate of the galaxy. And somehow he believed her. Hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace above a burned world. Velker. The planet's surface was blackened, its cities reduced to broken skeletons of metal and stone. Smoke still rose from deep craters like the world itself hadn't stopped bleeding. The man felt a weight in his chest as they descended. "This was your home," he said quietly. Lyra nodded, her face unreadable. Before they came, they landed near the ruins of a giant palace, its towers shattered, its gates twisted metal. Lyra stepped out first, the wind catching her tangled hair. She walked through the ruins like someone walking through a memory. The man followed, scanning the skies nervously. Any moment now, the enemy fleet could arrive. "Where is it?" he asked. She stopped before a massive door half buried in rubble. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface. "The Vault of Stars," she whispered. The man looked at the door. It was big enough for ships to pass through. Whatever lay inside, it wasn't small. Lyra pressed her hand against the symbols. They lit up under her touch, lines of blue light running across the metal like veins waking after a long sleep. With a deep rumble, the door began to open. The ground shook. Dust rained from the broken walls. And inside, shadows moved. The man stepped back, his heart pounding. "What is it?" he asked. Lyra's eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. "My father's last gift," she said softly. "The power they feared." As the door opened wider, shapes emerged from the darkness. Towering machines of metal and fire, asleep for centuries but humming with energy as if waiting for this moment. The Vault of Stars was waking. The Vault of Stars rumbled like a sleeping giant waking from a long dream. Dust rolled off its walls as the massive doors ground open, revealing darkness that glowed with a faint, eerie blue light. The man from Earth stood frozen at the entrance, staring into the vast chamber. Inside, rows of colossal machines waited in silence. They were taller than buildings, shaped like hunters forged from metal and fire, with weapons built into their arms and wings. Their armor gleamed faintly under the flickering lights, marked with the royal crest of Velker. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her thin figure dwarfed by the machines. She touched the nearest one, its cold surface humming under her hand like it was alive. "My father built them," she said softly. "Guardians of Velker. He swore they would never wake unless our world was dying." The man looked around uneasily. "And now," Lyra's voice was steady, "now the galaxy itself might burn." Outside, the wind howled across the dead planet. High above the ruins, the enemy fleet was arriving. Black warships filled the sky like a storm. Their engines burned red, casting long shadows over the broken palace. Smaller hunter ships spread out, circling the ruins like predators closing in for the kill. The man saw them on the radar. "They're here," he said sharply. Lyra didn't turn from the machines. "They came faster than I thought." The man tightened his grip on his blaster. "What do we do now? These things even work after centuries." Lyra's hand pressed against the control panel at the base of the nearest machine. Symbols lit up under her touch, spreading like fire across the entire chamber. One by one, the Guardian's eyes came alive, glowing gold in the shadows. "They work," Lyra whispered, "and they remember their master's blood." The first blasts fell on the ruins outside. Enemy warships opened fire, shaking the ground as walls crumbled and fire lit the sky. The palace shook violently, pieces of stone and metal crashing to the floor. The man grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to leave now." But Lyra didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the awakening Guardians. "No," she said. "We fight." The man stared at her. "With what? This small trader ship? Against that?" He pointed at the fleet tearing the sky apart. Lyra turned to him, her eyes bright with something he hadn't seen before. "Not with your ship," she said. "With theirs." She pointed at the Guardians now stepping out of the vault like giants rising from a grave. The first Guardian moved, metal joints groaning after centuries of silence. It was huge, its head nearly brushing the roof of the vault. Its weapons hummed with energy, glowing brighter as power surged through its ancient systems. Another followed, then another. The man stepped back as 5, 10, 20 of the towering machines marched out of the vault, each one heavy enough to shake the ground beneath their feet. "This is madness," he muttered. "No," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. This is Velker. Outside, the enemy fleet saw the movement below. New orders crackled across their channels. Destroy the girl. Destroy everything. Hunter ships swooped lower, raining fire on the palace ruins. But the Guardians moved fast for their size. The first raised its arm and unleashed a beam of golden energy that cut through a hunter ship like it was paper. The burning wreck fell from the sky and exploded on the ground below. Another Guardian fired a storm of missiles, striking 2 more enemy ships out of the air. The battle had begun. The man and Lyra ran through the ruins as the fight raged above. Guardians and warships clashed in the skies, golden energy beams ripping through enemy shields, while red plasma fire rained down in return. The ground shook with every explosion. "We need to leave," the man shouted over the noise. "Not yet," Lyra said, running beside him. "The Guardians will hold them off. We need to reach the control tower. From there, I can wake the rest." "The rest?" She pointed toward the mountains beyond the ruins. "My father built thousands." The man almost tripped. Thousands? Against thousands of warships? This was no longer a small battle. This was war. They reached the old control tower, half collapsed but still standing. From here, the entire battlefield was visible. The burning ruins, the enemy fleet in the sky, the Guardians firing back with weapons that lit the darkness like suns exploding. Lyra pressed her hand against the ancient controls. Symbols glowed again, brighter this time, spreading across the ground like veins of fire. Far away, deep under the black mountains, more doors rumbled open. The man's eyes widened as giant shapes stepped into the fading light. Dozens, then hundreds. The rest of the Guardians were waking. But the enemy wasn't giving up. From the largest warship above, something even bigger began to descend. A black Titan-class dreadnought, bristling with enough firepower to destroy a planet. Lyra froze when she saw it. "The Iron Warlord," she whispered. "He came himself." The man looked at her sharply. "Him?" She nodded slowly. "The one who killed my father. The one who burned Velker." The dreadnought's shadow swallowed the ruins below as its weapons powered up. For a moment, even the Guardians seemed small. The royal pursuit had reached its end. The final fight was about to begin. The sky above Velker burned red as the enemy fleet descended like a swarm of metal locusts. Warships filled the air, engines roaring, weapons glowing with deadly fire. And at the center of it all, the black Titan-class dreadnought loomed. A monster of steel, larger than cities, carrying the Iron Warlord himself. On the ground, the awakened Guardians stood like giants from ancient legends, their golden eyes glowing in the smoke-filled darkness. One by one, they turned toward the sky, weapons locking onto the descending fleet. The man from Earth stood beside Lyra on the ruined control tower, his heart pounding. He had never seen anything like this, a dead world coming alive with machines of war, a fleet so large it could crush whole planets, and one thin girl at the center of it all. "Lyra," he said quickly. "We need to leave before that thing turns this place into dust." But Lyra didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the black dreadnought as it descended through the clouds like a dark god of war. "I can't run anymore," she said softly. "If he takes Velker, if he takes me, the galaxy burns next." The man clenched his fists. He knew she was right. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about everything. The first strike came from above. A beam of red energy ripped through the ruins, melting stone and metal like wax. One Guardian fell, its chest torn open, golden light spilling out like dying stars. The Iron Warlord had arrived. From the dreadnought's command deck, the Warlord watched with cold eyes. His voice thundered across the battle through speakers so loud it shook the air itself. "Lyra Taziel," he roared, his words carrying through every channel, every comm, every corner of the battlefield. "Daughter of Velker, surrender, or watch your father's world die again." The man looked at Lyra. She stood tall on the tower, wind tearing through her hair, eyes blazing with anger. "This was my father's world," she shouted back. "And it will be his world again." The Guardians answered first. Golden beams of energy shot into the sky, tearing through enemy ships like knives through paper. Hunters fell burning from the air, crashing into the ruins below. But the dreadnought fired again, a massive blast that split the ground apart and sent 2 more guardians crashing to their knees. The man grabbed Lyra's arm. "We can't hold this forever." Lyra turned to him, her face pale but determined. "Then we don't hold it. We end it." He stared at her. "End it? How?" She pointed to the control tower beneath their feet. "My father built a failsafe into the vault, a weapon even the guardians feared. It was never meant to be used, unless Velker faced its last breath." The man's stomach turned. "What kind of weapon?" "One that burns everything above it," she said quietly. "Friend or enemy. It doesn't care. It just destroys." The man froze. "You'll kill yourself." Lyra looked back at the dreadnought, the warlord, the endless fleet raining fire on her father's world. "If I fall," she said softly, "then Velker falls with me. But not to him. Never to him." The guardians fought like demons from ancient myths. Their golden beams cut through enemy ranks, destroying ship after ship. But the fleet kept coming, endless, pouring fire from the sky. The ground shook as explosions ripped through the ruins. Stone towers crumbled. Smoke choked the air. The man helped Lyra reach the control core, deep inside the tower. Symbols glowed faintly on the old panel, waiting for the last living heir of Velker. She placed her hand on the console. The symbols blazed to life under her touch. Above, the dreadnought powered its main cannon, energy gathering for a shot that would tear the entire palace apart. "Lyra!" the man shouted over the alarms. "If you fire this thing, there won't be anything left standing." Her eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "There wasn't anything left standing the day he burned my home. I won't let him do it again." The dreadnought fired. The main cannon's beam tore through the clouds, straight toward the control tower. But in that same heartbeat, Lyra activated the failsafe. The ground shook like the planet itself was waking. From the heart of Velker, a wave of golden light erupted upward, brighter than the sun. It swept across the ruins, across the skies, across the fleet above. Enemy ships dissolved in seconds, ripped apart by energy older than any empire. Hunters vanished in fire. Even the dreadnought began to crack, its black armor splitting as the golden light swallowed it whole. The Iron Warlord's final scream echoed through the air before his ship exploded into nothingness. When the light faded, silence fell. The enemy fleet was gone. The dreadnought was gone. Only ruins remained, and the guardians, standing silently like witnesses to the end of a war centuries in the making. The man coughed through the dust. "Lyra!" She was on her knees near the console, breathing hard, her hands trembling. But she was alive. You're still here," he said in disbelief. She looked up at him, eyes tired but bright. "Velker lives," she whispered. "My father's world lives." For the first time since he met her, she smiled. The man helped her to her feet as the surviving guardians bowed silently around them, their golden eyes dimming one by one, returning to their long sleep. The war was over, but as the wind blew across the dead world, carrying away the smoke and dust, the man knew this was only the beginning, because Lyra Taziel, last heir of Velker, had survived, and the galaxy would soon learn what that meant.